Notice for the election for the office of Vice President was issued on 5th July 2022. In all, 50 nomination papers were received till the last date for submission of nomination papers. After scrutiny, nomination papers filed by Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar and Srimati Margaret Alva were found valid. The polling for the 16th Vice Presidential Election 2022, which commenced at 10 a.m. today in the Parliament House, closed at 5 p.m. Out of 780 electors comprising of elected and nominated members of Rajya Sabha and elected members of Lok Sabha, 725 electors cast their votes. The total elector turnout was accordingly 92.94%. The ballot box was sealed immediately after the close of poll at 5 p.m. in the presence of authorized representatives of contesting candidates and election observers. The counting of votes commenced at 6 p.m. after the ballot box was opened in the presence of authorized representatives of the contesting candidates, election observers and counting officers. 725 votes were polled, which was 92.94% of the total electorate. 710 votes were found valid and 15 votes were found to be invalid. Thus, the percentage of valid votes is 97.93%. The quota sufficient to get a candidate elected is determined by dividing the total number of first preference votes secured by both candidates by 2 and then adding 1 to the quotient. The quota necessary for being elected to the office of Vice President of India was determined to be 356 votes. On the basis of counting, Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar secured 528 first preference votes and Srimati Margaret Alva 182 votes. Therefore, in pursuance of the provisions contained in Section 11 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Elections Act 31 of 1952, read with Rule 35 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Election Rules 1974, I, Utpal Kumar Singh, the Returning Officer for the Vice Presidential Election 2022, hereby declare that Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar, Raj Bhavan, Ward 45, Hare Street, Kolkata 700001, has been duly elected to the office of Vice President of India. I will be forwarding to the Election Commission of India Form 7 under Rule 35(1)(c), which is the return of election to the office of the Vice President of India, and also a declaration of result of election under Section 11 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Elections Act 1952, read with Rule 35 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Election Rules 1974. Election Commission of India would then prepare the certification of the election of Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar as the Vice President of India, jointly signed by the Chief Election Commissioner of India, Shri Rajiv Kumar, and Election Commissioner Shri Anup Chandra Pandey. Thank you.